Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Joined by my good friend Elliot. We're going to be discussing Teofimo Lopez. Obviously fought at the weekend there up against Sandor Martin, second fight at 140 pounds, and some strange comments after the fight. Seemed to be questioning if he still wanted it. Obviously, still maybe not potentially got over the Kambosos loss. So we're going to just discuss sort of where his future goes from here. Is he still, has he still got it? First of all, Elliot, thanks very much for joining me. How's things? How you keeping?
Yeah, not too bad, Danny. Thank you very much for having me. Again, yeah, like it was quite a decent weekend of boxing, actually, wasn't it? There's obviously quite a few things to catch up and talk about. But the Lopez fight, yeah, I mean, it was more like that we were talking about a little briefly off air, but it's more like what happened after it, isn't it? That's kind of caused a bit of controversy. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, very delighted to be here and delighted to be speaking to you again.
Yeah, just there's not really too much to say about the fight. Like I stayed up to watch it. Obviously that and the Crawford fight was on late, so as you say, plenty of boxing. I stay up most weekends regardless, but it was a fairly uneventful fight. For anyone who didn't see it, Lopez was awarded a split decision against Martin. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't like either man could have got it because there was just so little happened in the fight. Obviously, Martin's very hard to look good against, sort of very elusive southpaw, and Lopez sort of won the fight maybe through aggression more than anything. When the score, I'll be honest, I watched the fight. I wasn't completely glued to it. I was flicking between that and the Crawford card because it was so uneventful. So I had no issue with the scorecard, but it was more after, as I say, Lopez was seen sort of looking quite almost disillusioned, probably the word to lose. And the fact that he was willing to say in front of cameras, knowing potential opponents up at now, obviously at 140 are going to see that, questioning where they still got it. What did you make of it, Elliot? What do you sort of even put that down to? Is that a real sort of cause for concern?
I think it is. I actually do think it is. I've seen Lopez's as his Instagram does, and since then, sort of like almost deriding it, saying people are making a story out of nothing. But I actually don't think it is a story out of nothing. He looked disconsolate at the end of that fight, didn't he? Like you say, it wasn't the best fight. I don't think, like you say, it wasn't really. To me, it wasn't really that controversial either. Like, I just kind of thought, yeah, like I said, I wasn't watching it as closely. I was kind of in and out of sleep at the same time. From what I did see, the bits I did see in the highlights and catching up on it as well. Like, yeah, closest fight, but happy for Lopez to win. I think, to be honest, it's like one of those things where Lopez, for me, in my mind, I don't know if you would agree with this, but Lopez is like, I come off that run, obviously, where he beat like Kobe and then he beat Loma. Kobe fight was obviously a massive victory. That was like a standout breakthrough thing. I was surprised when that happened. The Loma fight, I'm still not sure what to make of that, frankly. Like, I'm almost feel like Loma didn't turn up as he should have turned up in that fight. And don't get me wrong, like Lopez won it, but it was almost like he climbed the mountain and Lomachenko almost was a bit vacant and wasn't really himself in there. Then obviously the Kambosos loss, and then obviously this fight against Camford and now Martin. So for me, it's like almost like the momentum that Lopez had is almost kind of gone. Um, and I wonder whether some of it is kind of related to that. Like, you've obviously come sort of high, you haven't got that same height. Obviously, you moved up a division. There's obviously other names in that division as well. And it's almost like the starlight that you had is almost from moving out of that previous division is almost kind of gone. And I don't know whether that was also kind of a bit behind his comments as well. But it wasn't. I mean, obviously with Lopez, we expect front forward aggression, bang, like essentially stoppage fights. Like, but we're not really seeing that. So I can understand why he'd be questioning himself. And obviously we'll get into probably the trainer thing as well in a minute. But yeah, I think it's more a problem actually than he's willing to possibly admit to himself at this moment in time.
Yeah, I didn't have, I don't have any issues with Lopez not looking brilliant against Sandor Martin. He's very like he's coming off a win against Mikey Garcia, who granted not at his best, coming off a long period of inactivity, but was a fucking, top 5 pound for pound fighter like not that long ago. I
Mm.
think it's more the fact that he is saying that. That's more where the concern comes from. You touched on the Lomachenko fight. I wonder, is it maybe a case of he's coming now thinking, I've beat Lomachenko, so he's expecting, oh, I should be obliterating Sandor Martin. And then when he's not, he's sort of, that ego's sort of maybe starting to fracture a bit. And, his dad coming on to the sort of elephant in the room. He gets a lot of stick on social media, and I said it myself. The corner work in that Kambosos Junior fight was genuinely the worst I've watched live. I know a lot of people talk about Gabe Flores' dad, but I've never seen a display personally from him. I've maybe not watched the fights where it's been that bad, and that was bizarre. Just telling him to go in there and just knock him out as if that's opponent. I think he's obviously a competent boxing trainer in some aspects, as in he's trained Teofimo from being a boy to the fucking world-class fighter he is now. You know, he's a top amateur. But I think he's never going to get mentally right if he's staying with his dad the whole time. They're never going to, you know, get a realistic sort of grounding on where you're at and what you need to do and what expectations you should have against certain fights. I mean, I can't imagine what's being said between them two behind closed doors, honestly. What do you think? What do you think about the whole, you know,
No, I
father?
agree with you. I actually agree with you fully. Like the Cambosis one was bizarre. But it's everything about the dad. It's almost like one of those things where as soon as you start to notice it and tune into it, you just see so many other things. You think looks worrying. Like for example, even at weigh-ins when he's kind of standing in front of like doing some sort of bizarre handstand like media, you're sitting there going like, why you're not the fighter here. You're not out front. Like you don't deserve this limelight in the same way. It's almost like, don't get me wrong, it must be hard if you've like coached your son obviously from a very young age. You've taken him essentially to the mountaintop, as it were, to not think, hold on a second, I have a bit of limelight myself here. Actually, this is this glitz and this glamour is what I'm about as well. But it's a bad look, frankly, and I think it's also kind of aligned, hasn't it, with obviously the Cambosis fight you were describing, but also, again, as you were saying, and rightly, and I agree with as well, like with the Martin thing, where you think, well, you've come on, you've beat Loma, you should be wiping these guys away. You're not necessarily looking brilliant in beating them. Still a very credible victory, but you're not looking as brilliant as you'd expect to look, or as you think you should look, or if your dad's sitting there going there and knock him out as your trainer's telling you to look. So it's almost like there's a disconnect there, definitely. And I do feel like essentially we're just kind of ticking along, and eventually it's going to come, maybe sooner rather than later, where it just breaks down and Lopez loses again, or just doesn't have anywhere to turn. Like, you essentially need some, like, some advice, some genuine advice. Other than, I mean, I could have sat in the corner and go out there and hurt him. Like, any one of us could sit there and say that. But when you need some genuine kind of insight and advice, it's just not really coming. But it's difficult because, like you also said, I also agree. Like, you has also taken him to being unified champion as well. So it must be hard for them too in the dynamic they're currently in. But I do think, I just think longer term, it's not the relationship that's going to sort of flourish, frankly.
No, in general, I'm not a massive fan of father-son, trainer fighter relationships. Touched on Gabe Flores Jr. I mean, if you want to look at fucking Big John and Tommy Fury, the other extreme. George Cambosis' dad obviously seems he's brash himself, but maybe not quite to the extreme. I wasn't a massive fan of Eubank and Eubank Jr. I think you need that separation. I think ego comes into it much. It seems as if almost Teofimo Senior's sort of vicariously living through Teofimo. That's what it is like. But just in the interest of time, just as a last sort of point, obviously Lopez up at 140 now. Regardless of how he looked or not, he's got a win over I would classify Sandor Martin, I think, as a world level fighter. I think a win over Mikey Garcia puts you as that. I know he was European champion. Can he have, maybe a similar degree of success up at 140 as he did at lightweight, in your opinion?
Oh, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Obviously, you got like the likes of Pagre, Catterall. I suppose Taylor will move up when he gets through that one, I imagine. But I mean, he potentially can. Like, I think he could beat, like, say, Ramirez, someone of that sort of name, that sort of stature. Yes, but Gray would be a hell of a fight. I'd love to see that. I think that's the one that kind of we'd want in that division, frankly. And then I suppose, would I back him against someone like Catterall? To be honest with you, I would have done, obviously, before we saw Catterall versus Taylor. So again, that's one of those things where you think maybe not, depending on how the night goes. But yeah, I think he could. To be honest with you, of course he could in that division. Like, he's still, obviously, like you said before, world level fighter, definitely. Obviously, women's world champion. We almost say like an elite level. When he beat, obviously, when he came and beat Loma, was sitting there going, "This is a breakout sort of elite level fighter we've got here." So there's still that in him, but it's just a case of there's just so many question marks that equally I can see him either winning a title or not winning a title, but not with any sort of certainty on either opinion, to be perfectly honest.
It's a strange one, like, because the capability is so clearly there, but then it just seems so unlikely that he'll ever leave his dad. And I hate to turn this into just a session of us, ranting about his dad, but I don't think the issues that you started to see, maybe the sort of surface level of post-fight against Martin, are ever going to be addressed under his dad. So I think that's enough for this late in the night. Appreciate you coming on, mate. Really enjoyed chatting to you. If you've enjoyed, folks, comment your opinion. Do you think will Teofimo Lopez become a world champion at 140? If you don't think his dad's the right man, who do you think you would be a good match with, trainer wise? If you think we're talking shit, let us know. God knows it's not unknown to happen. But as I say, thanks for watching, folks, and that'll be all. Cheers.
Thank you guys.